Buzz Lightyear. How about Snooze Heavy Hour? Actual review from IMDb. No intelligent life in the making of this waste of time.
Oh my God.
That it's not that far off.
No, I mean, I pretty much agreed. I skipped over the review where the guy basically talked about how his kids fell asleep, and then he fell asleep, and then they were trying to ask him what happened. He couldn't tell them what happened because it put him to sleep too. So he's just like, there was a cat, I don't know. Yeah, the cat was the high point, right?
I mean, the cat was the high point.
We are Spoilers Intended, a podcast about series and films. I'm Steven, joined as always by Andrew.
Hello.
And Ryan.
Hello.
Hello indeed, gentlemen. Welcome.
So, yeah, we're talking about Lightyear this week.
We are indeed talking about Lightyear this week. A film that happened.
It definitely exists in the universe that we inhabit.
There's no denying it. It has made its way to Disney Plus as of, I think, this week.
Oh, really?
It's either this week or
soon,
it's next week.
yeah.
Oh,
Very
that was a very quick turnaround.
I wonder why.
Other TV studios need to follow that up by releasing films like, Top Gun Maverick on streaming much faster than.
They're still making billions of dollars.
Tom Cruise is still having fun just making money off the theaters.
I know.
He's racking it up.
It just makes me sad.
It's already passed Titanic as Paramount's biggest performer, I think.
It is.
Yeah.
But we're not here for Top Gun.
We are not here for Top Gun Maverick. We are here for Lightyear, courtesy of Disney and Pixar 2022's release. A prequel, but also a sequel, but also a different universe of Toy Story.
Yes.
Thank you for that, Pixar. We really, really needed that.
I'm just glad it wasn't confusing for kids or anything.
No, not in the least.
No, very straightforward storyline, very easy to follow, great jokes.
I definitely did not scroll through just an incredible amount of like 5 out of 10 and 4 out of 10 reviews that were like, my kids just didn't get it.
I don't really know who the movie was for, but we're going to get into that.
We're going to get into that. But first, something that Lightyear definitely was a science fiction film, or an attempt at science fiction.
It was science fiction.
It was science fiction. Yeah, I actually felt like it was almost a better high concept sci-fi.
It was.
In a lot of ways than a kid's movie. So building off that, we're going to talk about maybe some science fiction premises that we like.
Premises.
I
don't know.
Premises, I believe is.
Yeah, I don't even know if there's a
premises.
Premises.
But anyway, some science fiction concepts that we like, that we have seen in other media. And I'm going to let Ryan go first because I'm really curious.
I'll jump off here. Okay.
We didn't discuss this pre-show, so I don't know. You might be taking mine.
Maybe. I wrote some backups just in case. So my favorite sci-fi premise is the mind heist, made popular by movies like Inception.
Okay.
Movies like anime movies like Paprika.
Oh, yeah.
To an extent, Ghost in the Shell, where like,
Yep.
Even Blade Runner, like with some implanted memories, type stuff. So like
Blade Runner has like a couple different sci-fi premises that I'll hit on here.
Premises.
I like premises. We're sticking with that one.
But yeah, like I feel like when I first saw Inception, I was just like, man, what a crazy like idea that like you're going in, you're either leaving a memory or you're like planting ideas or you're stealing information, and just I don't feel like that idea has been explored enough in science fiction in a lot of the stuff that I've seen.
I think it's definitely a harder concept for viewers to grasp, but it's also a harder concept to write for.
Sure.
Because there's so many layers that assuming that you want to write it correctly, right?
Yeah.
And you want to have an engaging story, because it's definitely one of those sci-fi things. I really like it too. It's a really cool concept. Like Paprika is probably one of my favorite just overall anime films, just because it's so out there.
Oh yeah.
And you never really know if you're in reality or you're in the dream, or and those kind of movies are always really fun.
Yeah.
All right, that's fair. Yeah.
Do you have anything to add?
Do I have anything to add to that? I don't know. I think I was just kind of like mind jacked right there.
I mean, have you seen
I think
Inception?
he just got incepted.
I actually have not seen Inception.
Oh, and I know you haven't seen Paprika.
I have not. I have seen Ghost in the Shell.
Well, that's a start.
That's a start. Well, this concept is I won't say it's common. A lot of what we're going to hit on, right, are kind of almost sci-fi tropes or recurring themes. So the idea of kind of like the mind projection or altering perception or even just straight inhabiting. I mean, you look at everything everywhere all at once, right? And that's essentially you are inhabiting or making use of other memories.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah.
So it's the same concept. You see it flow. I like seeing different plays on it, right?
Yeah.
Because like Ghost in the Shell, you're going from almost a straight up a digital play of it where you're jacked into a system and it's taking control. I mean, even like the Matrix. Right?
Matrix is kind of like that.
Is sensory substitution, essentially, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same kind of concept. You're not inhabiting someone else. You're just you, unless I guess you're the agents and you're taking over people, but whatever.
Does that make Sword Art Online a mind heist? Because it's replacing what you're perceiving and putting it in your brain.
A bit, yeah. I don't like augmented reality, virtual
it's
reality.
more like AR, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a bit of a stretch.
Yeah. I mean, Matrix, you were physically plugged in. This Sword Art, you just take the headset off, right?
Oh, but they can't take the headset off, otherwise it fries their brain.
Oh, well, okay.
And their account gets deleted. Probably. I haven't seen it.
I haven't seen it.
You're really not missing out on a lot.
They stole that concept from Tom Clancy.
From what I understand, people do artwork about swords online and share it with each other. Is this the?
It's just a big image board.
Yeah, it's just like a big thread.
It's just
here's a sword I drew.
A small sub community on DeviantArt. They're locked into it forever.
Okay, so I'm gonna go.
Go for it.
So Lightyear actually kind of took what my initial trope was. No, because I have another one. But I love the idea of time dilation. It's really cool. Especially traveling at almost faster than light speeds, gravity, that kind of thing from like Interstellar, Gunbuster, whatever.
Yeah.
But
Planet of the Apes,
Yeah, I picked dystopian, the ability to predict a crime before it happens.
So
and
Minority
Report, Psychopaths, Blade Runner's also kind of in that that kind of genre.
Same vein, yeah.
Yeah, so the trope here is basically, there are these computers or kind of like precognizant oracles that can see this person's going to commit this crime at this date, at this time, at this place. And it is now up to you, an enforcer, to go and stop them from doing that. And then the real question is like, well, is it right for us to stop them from doing something that they haven't committed yet?
Yeah.
Right.
And I love the moral ramifications of that because like there are clearly evil people in this world that are going to, do terrible things. And if you go through and arrest them or, stop them from doing it before they actually do it, you have no idea if they were actually going to do it,
Well, there's so many variables between,
and if you're going from like Minority Report, which is one of my favorite Tom Cruise films, it's a great thriller. Just because, he's like trying to beat all this stuff where he's in theory, kind of like framed for something that he hasn't even done yet.
Yeah.
And just going through all the motions of stopping that from happening is really cool.
I've never read the Philip K. Dick book that it's based off of, Minority Report, but like a lot of stuff like Blade Runner and stuff, I've read a couple of the short stories that they've turned into stuff. And it's always like, there was a nugget here, but they really fleshed it out. And I wonder about Minority Report if they really beefed it up or how much the story was already there.
Yeah, or if they just completely butchered it and it was so much better concept on book.
Yeah.
You hit like Starship Troopers, the book, versus Starship Troopers. Like, this is just totally different.
Right.
And a couple of honorable mentions for that, and this is more time travel at this point, but Deja Vu with Denzel Washington.
Yeah.
It's not a great film.
Wow,
but
I thought about that film in forever.
But I like the concept of it, and that was kind of cool. And then Erased from 2016, it's an anime where basically a kid kind of has these powers to like basically go back in time and stop a murder from happening, and that's just kind of the whole premise of it.
Right.
But it's one of those things where it's like, that's more time travel than it is actual like
you get a little bit into that.
Yeah,
you get into possibly some quasi magic type thing.
Yeah, exactly.
I can't remember the name of the TV show. It's old 90s. Oh gosh, it might have been late 80s show where the dude has just like an apartment. He wakes up every morning and there's a newspaper at his door, but it's like tomorrow's newspaper. And so then he tries to prevent disasters he reads about.
I remember
you know what I'm
this
talking about?
Show.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it...
Because it's like every morning he opens his door and the newspaper's there and there's a cat sitting and the cat meows at him and like runs down the hall and disappears. And he picks up the paper and it's like, And it's like the actual intro to the show is like, what do you do with this? And the very first thing, he's like at the race course, betting on horses, making a bunch of money. And then he's like, well, maybe I should do something good with it. But stuff like that.
How did this cat print this paper?
It's never questioned. It just accept it.
Yeah.
All right. So my premise is, and this is kind of something that you're going to see in a lot of sci-fi shows to some extent, or sci-fi movies, books, et cetera, to some extent, is the concept of systems of control that follow a logical path to lose control.
Okay.
So 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Okay.
Jurassic Park is another style where you hit the point where in order to recover the system, we have to shut the system down. Well, this leads to another chain of events, right?
Yeah.
Michael Crichton is really big on this of complex systems and attempting to force control over complex systems with other complex systems.
Yeah.
And the potential for failure in it.
Well, and, Jeff Goldblum,
Chaos Theory.
so lovingly says, life finds a way.
Life finds a way. You got to have the pause. You got to have a pregnant pause in there. But yeah, I mean, it's a pretty common thing that shows up in a lot of sci-fi concepts.
Yeah.
I mean, I think even Blade Runner to some extent has a bit of that. Yeah. It has a lot of everything in it.
I mean, The Matrix, I guess, right?
Matrix is the same idea, where the system spins out of its own control. But it's a favorite for me just because of the there's always this very logical chain of events where you go from everything has been planned for, thought out. We have the contingencies, the computer's in control, not the human, no emotional decision. And then you have the one bad switch in there. And now this logical chain is a catastrophe instead of a utopia or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, like 2001 is a very good kind of example of that, where Hal is just slowly watching, humans do things, and it's like, actually, I think I could do it better.
Yeah, sorry, I can't let you do that.
Yeah,
but and you have a lot
These guys
of that.
are lame.
You have a lot of that concept where we have, the we're going to plug in the ultimate computer into the whole city system, and it's going to prevent all crime and keep everyone healthy. And then it comes to the conclusion of the only way to protect humans is to eradicate them because they are irrational and create their own problems.
Just a bunch of dirt bags.
Yeah.
So it's funny. I started rewatching last night, actually, the 1985 classic anime series called Dirty Pair, which is just basically.
I did too.
Really?
I'm not kidding with you. I fired up Plex and it was one of the.
Oh, it was at the top because he was watching it.
Maybe it was.
That's probably
it was.
That could be it.
Okay, so
TMI.
The first episode is literally about a city central computer that goes haywire and is like, actually, humans don't need to be here anymore.
Right. Or like iRobot, the movie.
Yeah.
iRobot has the same kind of
theme
concept of, well, for your protection, you have to remain indoors. Like we are going to control all decisions and that kind of thing. And it's a logical system that human aspirations would want. Well, I want to make everyone safe, and then you follow that logical chain, and well, this is where we end up.
So it's almost like the bigger theme is like hubris, like humans' hubris to be like we can control this uncontrollable thing through.
I mean, science fiction is always has some element of hubris in it, right? I think my honorable mention was gravitational effects, specifically with like dark matter. There are a lot of science fiction. I can't think of any at the moment. Like series and
could say Star Trek.
I'm not going to do Star Trek.
2009.
Well, something kind of sort of like The Expanse, but not quite, where you have a limited solar system view, because so we know dark matter exists, right? And then a lot of science fiction has posited, well, what if, even though we recognize its effect on the motion, it's it's not evenly distributed. So there are clumps of it. So if we send someone from here to Alpha Centauri and they hit a clump of this, well, it's going to alter their trajectory. And now you just die in space because you don't make it.
Right.
So suddenly all travel is limited to just within the solar system, and kind of like, well, this is the only lifeboat you have, in the galaxy kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I love those kind of really limited scope sci-fis.
Yeah.
So anyways, moving forward into something that is not restricted by things like dark matter and you can only exit the solar system, et cetera, along with many other lack of restrictions, both thematically, structurally, and other things. We're talking 2022's Lightyear. So I'm going to throw a little bit of factual information here on this one and see what kind of opinion y'all have on some of this. So obviously it came out this year, 2022.
Yep.
Angus MacLean is our director. This is his directorial and writing debut, essentially.
That he is credited for.
That he is credited for, and the main person, right?
Right. Yeah.
So if he's like a third or fifth credit on the writing, I don't know.
Yeah.
He's been a part of Pixar's senior creative team since 2016. So he's had a hand in a lot of other movies, but this is his first go, essentially, as the man.
As the top billing for creative control.
So we're going for kind of a newbie in this realm to someone who has been here for a long time with the composer in Michael Giacchino. I butchered it, but that's fine. This is his 8th Pixar film, among many others.
He has a very long list of music.
I mean, he's got both Incredibles, Up, Inside Out, Coco,
No Way Home,
No Way Home, Spider-Man: Homecoming, Doctor Strange. He just a ton of things, honestly.
He didn't have the latest Doctor Strange.
But the first
that
one.
was Danny Elfman.
That was Danny
I was going
Elfman.
to say Danny Elfman.
So box office, as of the 25th of July, it has made $215 million worldwide.
That is really low.
Yes.
Especially for a Pixar film.
For a Pixar film, that feels low, yeah.
That's $117 million of that is domestic.
Ooh.
On a $200 million budget.
I was going to say, what do you know the budget? Okay, they've basically maybe broke even, but not even on the marketing side.
Marketing, you figure it's anywhere from double to half of the production. So somewhere in there. So anywhere from 300 to 400 million essentially was
for marketing.
Right. Well, the total, so $200 million budget. So it's anywhere from half that, so 100 million, to you double it. I guess I didn't do a great analogy there.
Yeah. Well, maybe that's why it's coming on Disney Plus so quickly, is because they need people to go watch it.
Is it going to add subscribers? That's the only metric that they get money from.
I feel like I looked at it, and it's the same release window that Multiverse of Madness had.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, never mind.
I think they're just on most places it's like 90 days from theatrical to being able to rent. Disney, I think, is 60.
Unless you're
from
unless you're Top Gun Maverick and you're probably not going to be here till like December.
You're just like, it's 90 days from when we stop playing it in theaters and making billions of dollars.
We tell you, we're done. And it helps too, modern movie making. It's all digital, so just pushing it over to like a streaming service is much simpler than, well, we got to make the DVD, we got to cut the VHS or whatever. You're not making a big format change.
Yeah.
So we're ragging on it a little bit here. So let's how about a synopsis?
Yeah, sure.
So while spending years attempting to return home, Maroon Space Ranger Buzz Lightyear encounters an army of ruthless robots commanded by Zurg who are attempting to steal his fuel source.
Fantastic.
That is the simplest way you could sum up this
reasonably
mess.
Encapsulates it.
Okay, so what did we think about it?
Well, what we thought about it, and this is a aggregate score. So we are looking at this from 5 pillars of review. If you're familiar with this format, we have rolled entertainment into the overall score, so 1 score. So that is going to be the spectacle, the wow factor, how well, in this case, how well animated is going to be a huge factor. The performance, so this is your acting on stage, or in this case, how well animation and voice acting are matching up. Your score, so your music, does it support what we're seeing on screen? The plot, the story, that might be a stickler here. I don't know. We'll find out.
How well it was written.
How well it was written. And then our entertainment value is also factored into the score. So taking the 3 of us, all of those scores combined as an average, we gave this a 6.5 out of 10.
So not terribly impressive.
No, I feel like it should be lower. I felt like it would be lower, but I don't know. Maybe that's just my perception.
So
why does this movie exist is my question.
That is a question.
That is a great question. And if we go by what it tells us at the very starting blurb, that this is the movie that Andy saw in 1995, and it led to him wanting Buzz Lightyear action figures so badly that that's what he got for his birthday, and then we have Toy Story. So that's the justification.
Okay, so but before we start like really just railing on this film,
we're not gonna rail.
There are absolutely problems with it. However, there are definitely some good parts for the film.
There are, yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Me personally, I thought that the animation style, the CGI, and just how the film was made was actually fantastic.
That is what is helping this score so much.
Yeah, I think so too.
This was Pixar flexing decades of CGI.
Oh, yeah. And the cinematography, like the way they framed some of the shots was really good. And again, like the animation, Pixar does animation better than anybody, but like they continue to like do new little techniques here and there with certain scenes. Like when he's in the spaceship, there's a lot of stuff like with lighting they do that's really cool.
Reflections off the canopies. They always find somewhere to push it, right?
Yeah. And the particle effects, especially whenever he's like going through hyperspace, is just fantastic.
Oh yeah,
like,
that stuff was just like
absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
Your smoke effects, your explosions all look great. There's a lot of that again, it's why this is a 6.5. That is definitely doing the bulk of the heavy lifting to bring this up.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think my overall just problem with the movie is one of either two things. One, it feels like an answer to a question that nobody asked.
Yeah.
And number two is that like this almost at times, and I don't know the history of the script for this or like the production, but like it almost feels like they had a different sci-fi movie in mind, and they were like, wait a minute, what if we make this about Buzz Lightyear?
That's kind of how I felt when I was watching it.
I would believe that entirely.
Where it did kind of feel where they had a really cool concept, like, again, time dilation when you're moving at like really fast speeds through space is a really cool concept on paper, and I love it. And it just doesn't feel like the film that Andy would get hyped about from Toy Story initially to go out and buy the toy, but he didn't actually go buy the toy. He got it as a gift, and then he got hyped about it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. It's really muddy.
I feel like
it is.
Just based on watching the film, right? Any kid's toy coming off the film would have been Socks the cat, not Buzz. Which is already kind of a weird miss because obviously they have to. So for just some perspective here, Buzz Lightyear, the action figure, the toy, is Disney's #1 selling toy of all time. Single best-selling item, period.
So, like in real life?
Yeah, real life.
Okay, I actually didn't know that.
Yeah, I know. When I looked this up, I was actually a little shocked. Because you think, well,
Mickey Mouse.
A Mickey, right?
Or Disney
something.
Princesses.
Pluto. Yeah, give me something. Like you would expect to be something. And it may just be that those are so diluted, whereas Buzz Lightyear is just this iconic.
Yeah.
And it's you get the karate chop action and whatever else. It can be a good action figure, right?
Yeah. Right, yeah.
So it's interesting to me that they pushed. It felt hard to market a new toy, which would have been Socks, right? The cat.
Sure.
As opposed to Buzz, the toy that this movie presumably was all actually marketing.
Well, and he didn't really do a whole lot of like, I'll say iconic things in the film.
No. He was probably one of the most like boring characters in the film in terms of like Buzz Lightyear the toy is unhinged and crazy and interesting. And Buzz Lightyear
over the top.
And over the top, right? And Buzz Lightyear, the actual Space Ranger, is a hall monitor.
And kind of mean.
Yeah. And so it's weird in that, like, if you were going to do this different take like that, like, why make him less interesting than he is as a toy? And I don't know, maybe it was a doomed proposition to begin with. But
yeah, I mean, it's like you said, it was a question no one's necessarily asking.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a difficult sell to begin with, right?
Also, like with that title screen they throw up at the front, that to just let everybody know this is the movie that Andy watched in 1995. They made zero efforts to make it feel like a movie from 1995. You know what I mean? Like that. It feels like a modern movie in every respect. And they could have still kept the incredible animation, but just done some things that would have been like, this is what an animated movie in 95 would have done. Well, but they didn't do. That's why I feel like that title card was just tacked on at the end.
You could have even had, topical references that would date it to 1995, right?
Yeah.
Just, I don't know, we'll bring up like what Bill Clinton or I don't know, something like that. Yeah.
Anything to make it seem like this actually happened. And
Well, no, I think the thing is too, is that you need, so like me as a kid, I grew up in the 90s. And whenever I remember the movies that I really enjoyed watching, that weren't, like just like Star Wars or James Bond or whatever.
Yeah.
They all had like really just massive, like over the top action scenes with that were like explosions and, stuff that wasn't necessarily like hyper violent. It's just exciting. Yeah. And this film just didn't have any of that. And from a perspective of, this is me now in my mid-30s watching this film, like I can appreciate some of the higher concept sci-fi that they had in there with the time dilation and a lot of the effects and everything. And it was cool. But then there was really nothing else besides Socks the cat that I found very funny. And it's a cat. I like cats. There's like baseline. I'm already probably going to enjoy it.
You were already bought in before it even started.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, but I would say my problem with even the sci-fi concepts presented in this movie is that like they're too complicated for kids.
Yeah.
And they're not complicated enough for an adult to have like legitimate, like there's so many other sci-fi movies that do this better that it feels like, who is this for? Like if it's for the parents, like if they're into sci-fi, they've seen versions of the stuff they do in this movie executed better. And if it's for the kids have no clue what's going on. You know what I mean? And so it's a weird, like it falls into that middle ground of like, I don't know if this movie has an audience.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to agree with the concept that as we discussed, right, we just brought up sci-fi premises that we're familiar with. Like time dilation is something, it's been around. Like the concept has been around for quite some time. It's been explored.
Yeah.
If you want that to be your core sci-fi concept as a high-level science fiction movie, you need a new twist on it, right? Something different that's going to engage your adult audience. Well, we don't get that. And then the only thing it felt like that was there for the kids was socks. And that's just not enough, especially with Buzz kind of coming off almost mean.
Yeah. And Socks was definitely the highlight of the film.
Oh, absolutely.
Like every scene that he was a part of was always really fun.
Well, and it was impressive too because Socks is kind of playing a straight man opposite a straight man style of comedy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you still got some good jokes on it. It's like, okay, y'all, like this is a super stretch going way into just very, flatline comedy. Like what's going on?
Yeah.
But like Buzz was just kind of a mean person the whole film.
Yeah, like it was really weird. They just didn't. It'd be one thing if he's kind of very strict and that has a payoff somewhere in his favor.
Yeah,
and then it just
wasn't. Yeah.
This is the Intermission for the podcast Andy heard in 1995. He loved it so much, he rushed out to spoilersintendedpodcast.com for all their other content, including Discord and Patreon. He even learned about the spoiler wall and got a spoiler wall action figure for his birthday. This is that podcast. Alrighty, everyone, welcome back. Hope you enjoyed a quick little break, a short little intermission. If you didn't get the message posted on the spoiler wall action figure with actual spoiling karate chop action, it is all spoilers all the time from here on out. And first up, we're talking about a highlight, presumably, of the film, The Spectacle. And Ryan, you want to take it first?
I'll take it first. I gave it a 6.
Oh, my.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Actually,
I think I justify. That feels undeserved. Justify.
Okay, I will justify. So the 6 is because of the animation. It's because of the, like we said, earlier, like the when he hits hyperspace, right? Like the particle effects, the reflections, all that stuff, right? Great. Spectacle is fun on that. However, I feel like a lot of the action scenes, the way they were composed, the way they were executed was very middling. It was not very like, ooh, that's a cool way to do that. With the exception of, I can't remember the character's name. The granddaughter. I can almost think Izzy, when she does the space jump and then the ship turns. That was tense. That was like, ooh, this is fun. Most everything else was just kind of like, okay, fine. Like a lot of the fight scenes, like between him and Zurg,
those were not good.
Those were not great. Like, so for me, the spectacle, like you were saying earlier, like when you think of like 90s movies and you think of like the bombastic, stuff, the action set pieces and that kind of stuff, this movie was fine, but like none of that really delivered it for me like I wanted it to.
Yeah.
So like, again, it was very pretty, but I didn't feel like it was much of a spectacle, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. I'm gonna pick this up from
Okay.
We're gonna flip this a little. I gave Spectacle a 9.
Wow. Okay.
Because this is decades of Pixar having CGI expertise, and they flexed it pretty hard. The canopy reflections, any kind of explosion, and even, and I'll give them credit for this because you said, the action scenes, maybe they feel a little stilted.
Yeah.
But if you go and you watch, we complained about this, right? That it didn't feel like it connected to the toy well. But if you watch the way Buzz, the person, does his combat role, Buzz, the toy, does the exact same role quite a bit.
Yeah.
And even if the other, the wings didn't really show up until late, the wrist laser basically wasn't there. Even if those pieces to connect it weren't there, they still had kind of the movement the same.
Yeah.
Which is kind of impressive to do when you're taking essentially what's supposed to be a toy and then pretending that it's a real person and they're imitating the same movements a toy is making.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it makes sense.
So, I mean, I definitely, it didn't top out here. I definitely dinged it for some of the action sequences feeling a little lackluster and maybe not so much action as they were just kind of meant to be comedy, and that maybe didn't hit well either. That's a different issue, but you substituted my 90s explosions for funny moments or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, the space jump scene was really good. Some of those pieces that really actually felt like a real sci-fi moment were really impressive because just the camera panning out across the chasm that she's jumping across, and you felt the stillness of space, but still the motion that's needed within it, and it translated very, very well. So I was very impressed with those kind of things.
Yeah. So I'm going to pick this up. I also gave it a 9.
Oh my gosh.
I told you.
I'm just very harsh on it, I guess.
Well, no. That is totally fine. You were absolutely okay to give it a 6.
Yeah.
I put a lot of weight in how they animated it, how it looked, that kind of thing, and just like the overall. I really like the character designs a lot. I thought whenever I saw the trailer for the first time and saw basically, Buzz Lightyear in a fully, full CGI rendered kind of experience that wasn't a toy, I was like, they actually got him pretty spot on. Like, he looks like someone would look like that was modeled after a toy.
And it didn't look like cheesy.
Yeah, it didn't look bad. And like all the side characters were really well done, I thought, for character designs. I really loved all of their suits. I thought the suits were really, really cool, especially the Space Ranger suits once they got, all kind of in them.
Yeah.
There's a lot. I have other thoughts, but that's more of a plot thing.
Sure.
Right. Yeah.
And but really for me, the thing that kind of sold it was up until you get to the part where Zurg and him are fighting. All of the other scenes are actually pretty. Like, I actually found them exciting enough to where I wouldn't ding the movie for them existing.
Right.
Especially the kind of chase through like the rocky, spot, where basically they're being chased by the thing and it's shooting missiles at them and stuff.
The blasted landscape.
Yeah. And that's a really fun sequence where the I can't remember their names, but she's like throwing grenades and shooting them and everything like that. Like, that's a fun sequence. I like that. And but I also totally agree that it could have been better.
I just feel like visuals alone, right? Just how well it's animated and how good it looks only goes so far with me anymore with Pixar, because it's like all of their stuff looks great. It has looked great for a while.
Yeah.
Like, cool. I love what they did, like you're saying with the costumes. But I want you to do something extremely memorable and creative with those visuals, I guess, was the reason I dinged it. Because I got out of the movie and I had to really think about like some of the scenes, like the action set pieces, and like spectacle wise, like some of the bigger set pieces that happened, because I had already started to forget it. And it was just like, I remember it looked really good, and that was, I guess, why I dinged it as much as I did, was I was like, this looks amazing. Like the reflections, the hair physics, everything's fantastic. But what are you doing
yeah.
with it? You know?
Yeah, no, that's totally fair.
Yeah.
All right, so performance.
Yeah, we can move into performance.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'll pick it up.
Okay.
I gave it a 7.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think, Chris Evans is fine. I do think from a performance perspective, not having Tim Allen here hurts it.
I definitely agree there.
I would,
And that's
agree,
not even
too.
just it's not the authentic Buzz voice or whatever. One, they hurt themselves monetarily with this decision. Like, there's no debating that. And we don't have to discuss that here. But from if we need Buzz to be strict but also entertainingly funny, Tim Allen is just objectively a better choice. Ignoring the idea that he's the actual voice of Buzz Lightyear that we know.
Yeah.
He's just better at that. So he has way more practice at it than someone like Chris Evans has.
Well, and Chris Evans isn't really a voice actor.
Yeah, he's an actor who has a voice.
Yeah.
I mean, he did a decent job
He
of
was-
kind of
he was okay.
finding a middle line where it's like, well, I could almost see them taking his voice and making it into what Tim Allen's voice is, but not really,
Well, and I feel like with Chris Evans, though, like, he played Captain America, who's a very straight-laced kind of like Boy Scout-ish character.
But not mean.
But yeah, he was more like, to me at least, charismatic in that role than he is in this one. You know what I mean?
Well,
Yeah.
so I think the problem there is that in the MCU films, he has someone that he can always kind of quip with.
Play off of.
Yeah.
Where Buzz is meant to be the mentor and the oldest of the group.
Yeah.
Because, and essentially, like, because he's a no-nonsense character, there's no one else besides, like, essentially Socks that would talk back to him.
Yeah.
Because the other ones, they look at him as he is basically a commanding officer at this point, and like he knows better. He's been here doing this for however long.
I mean, he's a living legend, right?
Yeah. So at that point, like, there's no reason for you to have a straight man that's his equal, because there is no one equal for him.
And you lose that because of the way the story is done, right? Alicia Hawthorne would have been that character.
Yeah, and she was.
Except we lose her almost immediately because of the way the story is structured, right?
Yeah.
So it's just kind of it's the performance is lacking because the writing just didn't give it the space it needed, right?
Yeah.
Because you need someone to play off. Just to steal all the points from everyone, the last point, Peter San as Socks is the highlight.
Yeah.
I'll leave it there. I'll let somebody else pick it up.
I'll go. Sure.
Go for it.
You can go last, Ryan.
Okay.
Back on the bus.
I basically have the same kind of points. I give it a 7.
Hey, it's the same score too.
I actually didn't like Chris Evans at all as Buzz, not because I have any kind of emotional connection to Tim Allen being Buzz Lightyear. I just don't think Chris Evans was a really good choice for it. And I know the reason why he was picked is because he is very entrenched in the Disney.
He's so hot right now, and Disney loves him. Yeah.
Well, and I think the tone of his voice matches pretty close.
It does fit.
Like, it's not like it's so far off that you're like, why did you get, Gilbert Godfrey?
Yeah, you don't
RIP to like
super nasal voice.
Yeah.
But I did like Taika Waititi's character. He is a good. I think he's a much better voice actor than he is actor, personally. And he does a really good job at emoting kind of a lot of the more fun kind of experiences that the characters go through, or dangerous to them, fun for us.
Yeah.
And and then I can't remember the girl's name. The
convict
Izzy.
lady?
Yeah, convict lady.
Darby.
Darby.
Steele.
I loved her. She was such a good secondary character for basically the foil for Taika Waititi's character.
Yeah.
I thought.
So I love she's typecast, right?
Oh, of course.
So Dale Souls is the actress.
Mm-hmm.
She's her big thing that she's known for prior to this is Orange is the New Black.
Yep.
As a prisoner.
Okay.
So I like just hardcore typecast apparently.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I gave it a 7. It was fine. Really, like, just the supporting characters and Socks was fun.
Well, let me jump in here.
Oh boy.
I gave it a 5.
I mean,
Wow,
that's still acceptable, I think.
Yeah, and really, it all came down to, I mean, obviously, Socks, the cat's the best character. I didn't like Taika Waititi
Really?
that much. Like his character was fine, but like it just didn't. None of the jokes between him and the convict lady ever really hit for me. They were fine. Like I liked her better than him. Like that idea of a character who is like, like a convict on this like, rescue squad is fun. I don't feel like they did enough with that, but that's getting into other stuff. But like performance wise, I thought she did a pretty good job. Taika just didn't do it for me in this one. Like it felt too much like they were playing it safe, or he was at least with like, like his performance was pretty middle of the road. I didn't really like Chris Evans. Again, I would have, if this was grading just Chris Evans' performance, I probably would have given it a 4. I would have dinged it even more just because I feel like he didn't bring anything to Buzz Lightyear that was better than, again, the toy Buzz Lightyear. And we've gone over that, but like Buzz Lightyear, the toy is just such a more interesting idea that when they like, okay, we're going to make a live action, quote unquote, Buzz Lightyear, like they should have done something that was at least creative and wasn't just like milquetoast. It was just like the most plain, I am Chris Evans. I said my line. I go home, it was functional. And that was it. I feel like the other thing for me with performance was that like the old Buzz Lightyear was like
Brolin.
Yeah, like it was fine.
Oh,
just
really?
Like,
James Brolin.
Yeah. There were just moments where, again, I feel like they could have done a little more with like,
he, old Buzz talked for so little time that I kind of forgot that he was in the film.
Right.
You were already asleep at that point.
I was not asleep. I did not fall asleep in this film.
Like to me, that could have been a crazy performance that you remember. You know what I mean? But it wasn't. So that's why I gave performance a 5. Like there was just across the board 5.
I think that is acceptable.
So I actually, on the Taika Waititi bent, especially since we just got a good example of him again as a voice actor in Thor, Love and Thunder as Korg.
Yeah.
And I think that is the problem, is he's not really acting.
He's just playing himself.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's just who he is, because it's not really a different voice, and the inflection, the way the lines are read are basically the exact same.
Yeah.
And I mean, you can make if you're like Patrick Warburton or whatever, you can make a really long career doing that.
Right.
H. John Benjamin or whatever. It's just it's a risk, because we have that moment when when the theater lights up and I don't look at the screen and say, oh, that's Batman. I just go, oh, it's Ben Affleck. And in this case, I don't say, oh, this is a space dude. It's just Taika Waititi.
Yeah.
So moving forward.
Yep.
Yeah.
Score of the score?
I guess I start this time, right?
Go for it.
Yeah. I gave it a 7.
Yeah.
It was fine. I actually did like the I like the main title track, which was honestly pretty engaging. I would definitely recognize it if I heard it just out
in the wild.
Out in the wild.
Yeah.
The rest of it was acceptable.
It was there.
It definitely existed.
It had a score.
It had a score, which, I'm glad that they actually used Michael's score this time in compositions. Like, it's always nice when, people actually compose music and then they use it.
Yeah, it's actually in the film. Ryan?
I gave it a 6.
Yeah.
I think I'm very similar to your take on it, in that like there were a couple of tracks, like definitely the main title and one other track from early in the movie was like
when he's doing the like basically just doing all like the repeat hyperdrive jump or whatever, like that's a really good
song was
track.
cool.
Yeah, you keep getting the repetition of the beat where it picks up with the same sequence of events.
Yeah. But there was just a bunch of songs or a bunch of, parts of the score that were just kind of like, it felt kind of more generic space fare. Like it fit the movie. I feel like it fit the tone. It just, nothing about a lot of it stuck out to me as like great.
Yeah.
Other than just like a couple of tracks. And even them, they weren't like anything I would like listen to in my car.
Yeah. I also gave it a 7. So I would definitely agree. Main theme is distinctive, and I can't necessarily, hum it right now, but if I heard it, I would be, oh yeah, that's from Lightyear.
Yeah.
And I think the sequence, the hyperspeed travel sequence, the supporting music for that was good.
Was a highlight.
Yeah. And there are a couple other bits where they made good sound decisions. Sound decisions.
I mean, their sound design was actually quite good.
Quite good, yeah.
Yeah.
But also decisions of when the music hits and when the music pulls back etc., was intelligently done.
Yeah.
And again, we have, you know, a Giacchino score, and we actually got to hear it for both the music.
And like, I kind of rag on him a lot because he feel like maybe it's just because of all the stuff that we've reviewed more recently. It's just he happens to be the composer for it.
He's done a lot of stuff.
But he does a lot of things, and he actually is a very good composer.
And he's actually got, it's not, oh wow, Williams. I just
John Williams?
I just totally blanked on the first name there.
Jack Williams.
Yeah, I know. I James Williams. I don't want to go out on a limb there.
Oh, Johnny Williams.
But it's not John Williams, right? Where John Williams is hired to produce a John Williams score.
Yeah.
And as soon as it hits, you know, oh, this is John Williams. His stuff is pretty well all over the board.
Yeah.
For what we get. Sometimes you just don't get anything, and you know, that's a choice. But he feels like there's at least some variation in what he's doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, I mean, he definitely has, like, John Williams is, you know, it is a score done by him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that is not to say that I don't like his music, but you can definitely tell that a lot of his stuff is relatively derivative of what he's done beforehand.
Sure.
He's become the temp music of composers, where people are just like, this would sound great with, you know, John Williams' score behind it. We should hire John Williams to make a John Williams score.
Yeah, and I love John Williams. He's a fantastic composer.
Oh yeah, no. Yeah. I mean, there's a reason why he's been around for so long. Not who did the score, but
correct.
Still, yeah. Plot, Ryan.
I'll go.
I imagine you have a laundry list, so I'm gonna let you get a couple of things out.
I have a feeling that we're going to start low and still end low.
I gave it a 6.
Oh
wow!
That was actually a lot higher than I was expecting.
Shocked, actually.
Now we're shocked.
Yeah.
I think that one of my bigger complaints with the plot, like I said earlier, it's too complicated for kids. It's not complicated enough for like actual sci-fi fans.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But they use socks as like a get out of jail free card, almost like R2-D2 a few too many times for me. That feels a lot like, okay, the writers got ourselves into this situation. How do we get out? Oh, he's got a flamethrower in his mouth now. You know, and like some of those moments worked. But like I feel like
a little dart from the mouth is kind of fun.
That was great. Yeah, I feel like they just did a few too many of them.
Well,
and
the dart from the mouth works, right? Because
it was a callback.
He's a special needs help animal, and you have the moment of, wait, was that meant for me? Like what did he open his mouth and the flamethrower comes? Oh, that was meant for me? No, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
So.
But the other thing I think that I dinged it for plot down to 6 was just I think the emotional weight of the time dilation stuff didn't hit like something like the beginning of Up or any other like Pixar movies. Like when I was watching it, they didn't give us enough, I feel like, in between missions to like really let it sink in of the gravity of like what that would be like if you came back from a mission and now your best friend is married and now your best friend has kids and now your best friend has grandkids. Like,
yeah,
we didn't get time to actually deal with any of that. And then it was done and we kind of moved on. It felt very weird to me in that like, that was probably the most emotional section of the movie and it just didn't work for me. Something in the way that they executed it just didn't really.
It had the potential for the highest payoff.
Yeah.
But it was almost rushed to get to what they wanted to do instead of that being the payoff, right?
Yeah. That's exactly how it felt. It felt like Pixar doing it was like someone doing an imitation of Pixar, not Pixar doing one of their own movies. You know what I mean?
Yeah. They were like, I want to do an Up montage.
Yeah.
But different.
But worse.
Well, we'll just time skip. We'll actually time skip with the plot. Wait, what are y'all doing, guys? Slow down.
Yeah. I think, honestly, it's too close to that Up sequence where we are jumping through time, you know, like seeing the progression of stuff to where it's just like you can't, when you're ever in direct comparison with that, you're going to struggle. Well, so they should have done it a different way, I guess.
You're always going to lose because there in Up, the way the time skip is done is it builds the relationship between the two characters. Whereas here, the time skip is widening the gap, right?
Well, and the relationship with them is already there. There is no buildup for the audience because they already have this long-standing relationship that they've been through all this stuff together that we've never seen.
We get a glimpse of it, and then it's all gone, right?
Yeah. Also, I feel like these are minor. I just want to throw these in there real quick. What is the red shirt dude at the front? Featheringhamstan. I felt like it was a huge plot missed opportunity to not bring him back and let him be the old convict at the end, or
some kind of relevant character,
some
right?
kind of character that like his granddaughter is someone on the team, and she's the one that Buzz has to trust to help out.
Yeah.
In the end, or he was Zurg, or like I feel like there was a lot of things they could have done.
There was potential there.
Yeah, they set that character up early, and I was throughout the rest of the movie watching for like,
where is he?
Where is he? Yeah. Or where's his descendant? Or where is like? There's got to be something to do with because that was the other thing for the plot for me is like, what is the message of this movie? It's that like you should learn to be a team player, or is it that you should learn to live with your mistakes, or is it like I feel like that was what muddied it for me, was like there wasn't like this cohesive, again, because they didn't have the cathartic like callback of like, and now Featherington Hampstead son's whatever, like grandson is the guy that he does trust to grab the wheel, and then Buzz has moved.
Yeah.
Also, we don't know like Buzz, I think his motivations for like wanting to finish the mission were very thin. Like, is he trying to get back home to see friends? Is he
the mission is the only thing?
Yeah, like that. It felt like a lot of that would have been more.
Well, also, the mission is the only thing, but we don't really get prior to them landing on the planet, right? Well, what's the mission?
What was the mission?
Yeah. Like, it wasn't really ever fleshed out.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of people on board, and you're like, so were y'all going to colonize somewhere?
Because we're here now. You have a colony. This is technically a success. We have a colony,
right? Yeah. So
Featheringhamstan.
Featheringhamstan. Thank you.
That is a name.
I mean, it's meant to be.
Yeah.
That's about the long and short of his comedic role.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll pick it up.
Sure. Why not?
I gave it a 5.
Okay.
Yeah. So, the weird framing story, I think, hurts it badly because we needed either more framing story or no framing story.
Right.
And this half solution of a paragraph to start the movie is just weird. It's also weird too because like the time dilation happens and it's a shock to Buzz, right? It's an emotional shock, but you were traveling at this hyperspeed prior to, like, this effect exists. They have a special needs pet designed for this purpose. Why is this a surprise to anyone that this is happening? I don't know. You skip however many years.
Yeah, well, that is a good point though. Like they were on a ship that was traveling at hyperspeed, correct? Before they,
in theory,
or did we ever see that? Maybe they were.
I don't think it was.
No, they were.
I think it was.
They were.
They were traveling at that speed. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh yeah, because the other crystal got broken.
Had the same effects.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So yeah, it should be well documented that time dilation happened.
It is well documented.
Yeah,
they have there's a different word for this, not special needs, but like a
support.
A support, yeah, like
an emotional support robot.
Yeah. And like also, we kick the plot off kind of, right? He finishes time dilation and he's back, and Socks has solved the crystal equation over 60 years or however much time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And every skip he does is 4+ years, right? Every 4 minutes is 4 years.
Yeah.
Well, he's back from this trip and they show up and say, well, it's been decommissioned and we're taking your robot. And that leads to the next thing. You had a 4-year window to decommission this robot. And the day it had that's far too, there needed to be something more there, right?
Well, I mean, in their defense, the robot was just sitting in his room. They don't have to send the cleaners in there. He's not in there making a mess. Like, I mean, they probably hadn't been in his quarters for 4 years. So
yeah.
Either way, it's still just, it's almost too perfectly coincidental.
Sure.
My last minor nitpick. I really have just kind of been dancing around small stuff because there's just, it's hard to approach this weird time travel thing that they did, because time dilation is a really well established concept in sci-fi, right? Like we hit on that multiple times. This other version of, well, now there's a second version of you that's actually aged and now they're back. That is not a particularly well.
It breaks a lot of rules.
Right. And maybe this is their attempt at putting a twist or a spin on it. But it's so far out there that it's into magic territory, and it's really, really soft magic, and everything hinges on it. And that's a really weak hinge to put that much weight on.
Yeah.
Final nitpick. All the damaged robots return, right? They get zapped back.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
but the first robot that they encounter that becomes plot relevant throughout is damaged and knocked out of commission and not returned, because the only reason it's not returned is because it needs to become plot relevant at the end of the movie. And they just leave it. Like, again, we have these systems and these rules that they're operating by, but we just ignore the ones that we can make it relevant for. Same thing with Socks, where it's like, well, he's just a Swiss Army robot,
right?
not an emotional support robot. Like, the dart makes sense. The flamethrower is highly questionable.
Well, even with Socks, they could have explained that a little better if, like, earlier in the movie, Buzz was like, "So what do? You just, do whatever, among other things." He could have hinted at the fact of, like, I'm not just a emotional support cat, but, like, they didn't, and then, like, he just starts, like, getting him out of every situation.
Well, with the flamethrower, I just imagine this robot's like, "Please stop resisting. I am trying to save you."
Yeah. Yeah.
I see you have a wound. Would you like me to cauterize it?
Your file says you're a pyromaniac. Check this out.
And that's the thing is, like, they could even just throw in a line there, like if Buzz gets a cut on his finger and Socks is like, "Hey, I can cauterize that. I have a flamethrower."
That, or he barfs up a Band-Aid. That'd be pretty fun too.
It's a hairball and it's a 10 of Band-Aids. Stuff like that would have worked well.
I think a lot of it just still comes back to that problem of, like, it felt like at times they were trying to make it simpler so that kids could hang in there with what's happening. And then anytime they dance close enough to, like, timeline changes and, like, it's actually old Buzz and that kind of stuff, they couldn't get as nitty gritty as they needed to make it make logical sense because it would lose the kids. So that's where it just kind of, like,
it falls apart.
Yeah, it kind of falls apart.
So speaking of,
Andrew,
I gave it a 6.
Okay.
And my biggest problem with this film was that it was so mediocrely average for how they wrote the plot.
Yeah.
That they didn't go hard enough or they didn't go soft enough.
Exactly.
Like, it's one of those where, like, you almost had, like, a really cool concept film that would have been, very entertaining for people like me that really enjoy sci-fi and really enjoy tropes of those kind of things, of, like, time dilation and time travel and all these other kind of stuff. And then they just didn't go far enough with it to where there wasn't enough concept driven pieces that would really entertain someone like me. But then you also, you're just alienating your kids, which essentially, at this point, like, Pixar is, like, Pixar has always been kind of synonymous where it is entertaining for children and entertaining for adults. Going into these films, that's kind of what you want to expect and what you want to see. And unfortunately, they just didn't do it. And I had a really big issue with basically old Buzz just existing because it could have been anyone else.
Well, and it also breaks its own continuity, right?
There's so many weird ramifications of, like, having this older Buzz that's been going through time.
No. We're not talking about that. We're talking about Toy Story 2 establishes that Zurg is Buzz's father.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's... Okay.
So they're marketing these toys from the movie, and the toys don't even actually represent the movie they're marketing from, right?
Yeah.
Within this universe that exists. And we'll go even further with that because Toy Story 2 actually establishes that Buzz is just a toy, not movie merchandise.
Yeah.
And then they wanted to make this movie, and they had to put the exposition at the front. And they kind of...
Well,
it's weird.
And to both of those points, though, like, I feel like if this movie had not been about Buzz Lightyear and had just been a science fiction animated movie from Pixar,
it'd be fine, yeah.
They could have, that and someone who has a more deft hand at writing and directing maybe could have threaded the needle between, entertaining for adults and kids better. And I think when you make it about Toy Story and you have this obligatory title card at the front that the studio probably made them add, you get into that kind of stuff where, like, in Toy Story 2, you're now contradicting stuff. You're breaking your own internal logic of the movie. You're
flirting with problems.
Now, just talking about Toy Story 2 and the revelation that Zurg is Buzz's father, all that is literally just a throwaway to a Star Wars reference.
Oh, I know.
But now they own Star Wars, so they could do that unironically and be fine.
But at the time, like, it was just throwaway. But it does cause problems if, for whatever reason, these characters they're sentient beings, obviously. But, like, if these characters have some kind of like memory of how they were, of like what their source material was
they're
initially.
Like, they just have they have the backstory. It's printed on the back of the box.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah.
Is like there's a lot of stuff. But I don't know. I always have a problem with things that are kind of nebulous. Of like the final solution is just try harder.
Yeah.
Right. Especially when you've already been shown to be, well, the efforts you've been putting forth have been not just that you're falling a little short of the mark, but like failing grades. This is going to the kid that's putting up F's and D's and saying, well, if you try harder, you can get an A.
Yeah, well, and that's kind of the thing is like a lot of the stuff that like the supporting characters and the essentially trainees kind of like accomplish, like some of it feels earned and then a lot of it doesn't.
Yeah.
To where you're just kind of like, well, you had no skill at this before now, and now you succeeded immensely.
Despite yourselves almost.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. Like mostly I just don't think they went hard enough in either direction.
Yeah.
Right.
And you know, either make it a lot more campy like the mid 2000s or early 2000s Buzz Lightyear cartoon
show.
Yeah. That honestly, I mean, it was a fine show.
Yeah.
I watched a couple episodes of it.
Fine.
And that's, you know, and that was where the, you know, like the persona of Buzz Lightyear kind of came, you know, or what they kind of moved him into from the show or from the movies to the show. And this just felt like it was such a deviation from that because, and this is another problem too, and this is more entertainment at this point, but I really don't like stuff or like basically like prequels that are like, oh, how did he get the jetpack? Or how did he learn to use his laser beam? You know, and it's like, we don't need to know that.
He just got
I
his
don't need to
iconic
see
gun. You saw it happen on screen. It's like, I don't need to know.
I don't need to see how the sausage is made. I just want to eat the sausage.
Yeah.
It's good.
Well cooked sausage.
Sure.
Do people eat medium rare or rare sausage?
Well, I
guess
saying I don't need to see how it's made. I just need to know that it's cooked and ready to go. Right? Like
I want a pound of your raw sausage.
But wow,
there's a half-baked joke in there somewhere, and it's just not quite.
It hasn't formed yet.
Yeah.
Just like this movie's plot.
Yeah.
Moving on to entertainment, Andrew.
I gave Entertainment a 7.
Okay.
Wow, that's high.
Well, I pushed
Higher
it
than
up
I expected.
because I like Socks a lot. I
Okay.
thought the film was visually entertaining, but again, I kind of have a problem with stuff where it's kind of like that weird like prequel territory where they're kind of like, oh, well, they're not in any of the iconic stuff that you're used to them seeing yet. This is how they get it.
Right. And then he gets it at the very end, and the toy that comes out has all of these things on it instead of, you know, like actual Buzz for 95% of the movie.
Yeah.
Problems.
Yeah. And honestly, I think probably the biggest problem with me, and this is more just, it feels very arrogant of Pixar as a studio to have the title card at the beginning of like, this is the movie that Andy was a rabid fan of as a kid, and he decked out his entire room with wallpaper and sheets and
kid would have hated this movie.
Yeah, again, to go back to their continuity issues, they failed on that one too.
Yeah, because he didn't even buy the toy.
The title card says he bought the toy. It was a surprise birthday gift from his mother. Pixar, you made this movie. How do you not know what the plot of
Maybe
the movie
Pixar
is?
doesn't have a login to Disney Plus and they can't just rewatch the first Toy Story. I don't know.
Okay, yeah, but I don't want to rail on it because I really did enjoy the movie most of the time.
Yeah.
It just there's a lot of like, you know, plot elements that really kind of took it out.
Well, then let me jump in because I really didn't enjoy
I'm
it.
going to let you have the last word. Hold on.
Okay, go for it.
I gave it a 6. A lot of the same reasons. Socks was a highlight.
Yeah.
And again, to harp on whatever continuity there is, if any kid saw that movie and it was their favorite movie, the toy they would have gotten would have been Socks.
Sure.
Period.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because way better than Buzz, just period.
Yeah.
And again, we've beat on this a lot. It's a movie that just didn't know what its target audience was. And it may very well be that it was like, we had this cool sci-fi plot and then they just went in and stickered Buzz over it to like make it, well, let's get a tie-in. We need to, get an iconic Disney character. Oh, Buzz Lightyear, he's in space. Oh yeah, perfect. And then that made what they could do with it very limited.
Yeah.
And kind of rough. And like, hey, Chris Evans is up there. Maybe his voice acting isn't great, but if it's just not Buzz Lightyear, then maybe it's way more acceptable.
Yeah, then it's fine.
Yeah,
or maybe more than fine than what we got.
Well, it removes the preconceptions that we expect from Buzz, and then we get what we got from Chris Evans. If it's just a Chris Evans character, then it's not there, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's it for me. Ryan?
I gave it a 5.
Okay.
I'll never watch this again. It was fine. I might like pop it on and watch like a couple of the hyper, space or speed scenes a couple times. I might like skim through it, but like for me, this movie took itself way too seriously, right? Like this, if you look at like the Buzz Lightyear action figure and like in the first Toy Story, the idea of like the kind of stuff he says with his karate chops and all that kind of stuff, it feels like it didn't come from a serious movie that came out in 1995.
It came from like a cartoon.
It felt like it came out of a cartoon, right? And so I feel like they missed the mark from the get. Again, I don't know what the origin of it was. It could have been a different sci-fi story that they then slapped Buzz Lightyear onto because they were afraid it wasn't going to make hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah.
And then ironically, it still didn't make hundreds,
They went
the
from
money
one
they wanted it
minefield to a different minefield.
Right, yeah. But I just think at the end of the day, like everything was just fine. Everything was like, okay, 5 out of 10. That's why I gave it a 5. Because every time I thought about entertainment, I was just like, there wasn't any big comedy that really hit for me.
No,
the
nothing
emotional,
exceptional.
No, everything was just fine. Like the emotional scenes didn't really hit for me that much. Like to be like, oh, you have to go see Lightyear. You know?
Yeah.
It felt like its in-universe logic didn't make sense. The plot was... The reason I gave the plot a 6 and not lower was just like it surprised me. I didn't think they were going to do like an interstellar style time dilation thing.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was going to be like, oh, we just made a colony here because you messed up. I was like, okay, you've surprised me, Pixar. I didn't see that coming. I thought it was going to be more, straight laced. But I really feel like if this had been a more adventurous idea of like, let's make a fake 1995 animated kids movie and make it bonkers and make like, lots of comedy and lots of, stuff, I would have enjoyed it immensely. But as it is now, it is that middle of the road. Like it's not fun enough and lighthearted enough to be a good kids movie. And it's not serious enough and in-depth enough on the sci-fi stuff to be like worth a rewatch.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you kept having to the camp idea, right? Because if you wanted to reflect the 90s, camp would have been a good approach.
Yeah.
And you kept having these weird, because it felt like a very serious film. And then you had like the Vine that would just randomly show up and grab people.
Right.
That was 90s camp.
Yeah.
And it doesn't fit at all with the serious concepts of like we're establishing a space colony and we're doing interstellar travel with time dilation and your friend is aging and going through all these stages of her life and then passing away. Like the 90s camp doesn't fit with any of that.
Well,
no, yeah.
So to kind of talk on the time dilation stuff, I think one of the reasons why, because like we mentioned it earlier about how it doesn't really feel as emotionally resonant as it probably should be.
Yeah.
Because we just never got enough time with it.
Yeah.
So like one of the biggest things is so like in shows like Gunbuster, which is a 1989 anime that does a lot of time dilation. Or maybe 1988, I don't know.
Oh, he's just dithering.
Or Interstellar, whenever there's a lot of time dilation that happens because they're traveling at faster than light speeds or they're going close to a black hole, there is a massive difference in just how much time that they basically allow the audience to sit with the main character going over the kind of ramifications of what just happened.
Yeah.
And, like in Interstellar's case, like they will, like they're like, hey, this has been 40 years and you have to deal with this now because, the guy that's been sitting up here by himself for, 40 years is now like he can actually like talk with people again. And like those kind of emotional levels stuff just doesn't happen in Lightyear because they just never gave us enough time.
Well, because it's a kid's movie too. Like that's the other thing is like how heavy are you going to get? Like, so when they have this colony and they're like, everybody's good. They just made new families. I'm like,
hold on. Whoa.
Okay.
Up is a kid's movie.
It is.
Up is a brick house dropped on you in the first 5 minutes. You can
100%.
absolutely do that. It just has to be well done. Gunbusters 1988 to 1989. Congratulations.
Hey, I did it.
Oh, give him a cookie. Do you have the cookies?
I don't have the cookies.
Okay.
But yeah, so, it's those kind of things that like if you just give us a little bit more time to let it sink in, then you may have a really emotionally resonant film, because now he is having to mentally deal with these besides just, oh, well, it was just 4 years of my life, or 4 minutes of my life, 4 years of your life, but I'm going to make sure I do the mission. And then that's it. And then he just goes up and does it again. You just don't get these repeat kind of emotions that you should be building up with.
Well, and I think too, like, again, to just keep comparing it to Up, like the thing with Up is that you don't really see it coming necessarily. Like oh no,
they
like
blast you out of nowhere with what's going to happen.
This one, as soon as it starts, I go, oh yeah, so she's gonna just like die. Okay,
yeah.
Like from the beginning, like they should have played around with the time dilation a little more, have not made it exactly 4 years each time. Like one time he comes back and it's only been a week, and one time he comes back and it's been 8 years. So that then you have this like,
works, but that's fine.
But they're using a different formula.
They're changing the fuel formula.
Yeah, they're changing the formula, so it's having different effects.
Yeah.
Like then you can have that thing of like, I think we've cracked it. This, you should only be gone for 2 weeks. Comes back and it's been 60 years and she's dead.
Yeah.
That's like, And again, if you had more time with seeing him and her interact and like how they,
hits harder.
Yeah, it would hit harder.
Yeah.
I think the theme of it is, if somebody that was a better director and a better writer with less studio meddling possibly based this off of something that wasn't Buzz Lightyear, they might have been able to make this work.
Yeah,
but
it gives you a lot more room to turn around, and if you're not constrained by having to meet up the standards of Buzz Lightyear.
Well, almost every moment that was tied to Buzz Lightyear felt like the movie had to bend over backwards to
to fit it in,
to justify it.
Yeah.
But not enough, because it still contradicts a lot of Toy Story stuff. So it's like, whatever.
Yeah.
Well, already on that note, that sounds like all the time we have for this episode. Until next time, I'm Steven.
I'm Andrew.
And I'm Ryan.
And as always, every spoiler was intended.